Quilting Celebrations with Patrick Lose is brought to you by The Warm Company, manufacturers of the most loved battings and double-stick fusibles for creative people. Janome, what's next? Superior Threads, all your favorite threads. Havel Sewing, cut it close with Havel Sewing. And Patrick Lose Studios, designs and inspirations for your quilting celebrations.
Welcome back to Quilting Celebrations with Patrick Lose. I'm here again with Miranda and Patty. I hope you enjoyed the last segment where Patty made the pillow. But we try to have a question and answer period on the show, and honestly, we need to devote an entire segment to the questions and answers that viewers and I have about just what it is that you produce and how you're using it. So let me read some of these questions here that I think are going to prompt some conversation. Do you wash the wool before making projects?
No, the person that's going to stitch with it does not have to wash the fabric once they get it. We've already washed it before we dye it, and every time we wash it and dry it and it goes through the process, it gets a little bit more, the weave gets a little bit tighter, and so it's not truly felt, but we have felted it in the process. So it really doesn't ravel. It should be ready to go just as it is.
And that brings up one of my questions. I want to know more about the process. So what is the process of dyeing your wools? Take us through that.
When we dye the wool on a regular basis, we dye several batches a day. And each bath is pretty small. It only has, we cut it into fat quarters. Okay. So we dye 32 fat quarters at one time. Okay. And we dye it in a big vat. And it's called acid dyes, so it exhausts. So it's a magical process that I don't understand the chemistry, but the dye goes in, acid goes into it, the water, we bring it up to a slowly increasing the temperature to almost a boil. And as the temperature gets really hot, the dye exhausts from the water into the fabric, So once we rinse it, it's completely clear. So it basically makes it color fast because there's no excess dye to bleed after the fact.
That's awesome.
And then we wash it and dry it afterwards.
And I love that their colors are consistent. If I buy one color, the next time I'm going to make that project, it is the same color.
Yeah,
so
that's really important to color people.
Recipes is what I call them. The real term would be formulas. But I started...
More chemistry.
I started and did everything in small batches when I was doing thread. And I was doing it in the bathtub in the very beginning. And I was doing spoon dyeing, is what I've learned it's called now. Now we dye everything and we weigh everything, and everything is a formula, and it's very mathematical. So that's how we are able to reproduce and be consistent and reproduce the same color each time.
I love the way that you talk about it, though. It sounds like the whole process of your becoming a fiber artist has been so organic. It's like it just came to you. This isn't something you've been doing since you were a little kid. It just popped into your head one day you were going to do this. And so like the thread, that's another thing. I have no idea how thread is dyed. What's a little bit about that process?
So when we dye our thread, we do have some machines and we wind the thread and we wind it onto a certain, it's called a package. So instead of being a cone, it's a cylinder. Okay. And then the first step that we do, we actually do it in a machine. So it dyes, we take white thread and we dye it in a machine that's pressurized, and it dyes, so like if this lighter green color, we dye the first color solid light green. Oh, sure. So that's why we call it overdyed. Okay. And then we go through that process. So it's really, to do one color, it takes at least 3 days. Okay. So then it dries and we basically just air dry it. The next day we come back and we wind it onto special holders and we overdye the second color. So part of the thread gets dyed twice and part of it gets dyed only once. And then some of the colors that we have that are multicolor, we might dye them 3 or 4 times. And so those colors are not color fast when we call them our holiday collection. The spacing between the different colors is so small. So if we dye it yellow and then black and then maybe a part of it is purple, if we dye it too many times and then we go to color or heat set it to make it color fast, all the purple bleeds onto the yellow and then there's no yellow left. So, but the colors that are more subtle and are tonal in tone, we're able to heat set those and have color fasted the majority of our colors. Which I'm hesitant to say that they're all color fast, because if you get one skein that's not, then... Yeah. So I usually just like to tell people they're color fast, but to be careful, and really it's better if you don't wash them at all so it doesn't bleed.
Right, and honestly, I mean, I've done a lot of cross stitch myself and different embroidery kind of things because I love doing handwork. I wouldn't even think of putting some of these things that I've done in the wash. I mean, sure, if you do it on white linen or Aida cloth or whatever you're using, yeah, sometimes the oils from your hands or whatever will make it look dingier, but honestly, I want people to know the work I put into that, and that's part of what shows that. So.
And really, I always say, just wash your hands before.
Right.
Every time you stitch, you should wash your hands.
You should, and don't eat while you're stitching.
True. I don't know if I could live with that one, but let's get to another question here. Oh, this one's good, and I want both of you to answer this. Where does your inspiration come from? And Miranda, I want to know where your inspiration comes from for color, because I just love the colors you're using.
Usually it's what's going on in my life or what's going on in the world. Sure. I have 4 children, so there's a color name for each child. My nieces and nephews have a color name. I'm from North Carolina, so some of the colors have a southern theme. Like we have grits and molasses and collards and kudzu and scuppernong. And I have learned some things that were southern that I took for granted, just assumed everybody knew what they were. We go to a show and nobody knows what it is.
I got to know too, what's your favorite of your colors?
Well, they change. So
yeah,
right now I'm kind of more turquoisey kind of color. So I like ocean a lot, one called Peacock. And
I like those
Capri
too.
or Island Breeze. But 5 years ago, it was probably oranges. So it kind of changes.
That's great.
But I like greens and blues.
It's the evolution though that keeps you fresh and
right.
churning out new colors, because
right.
if you just stuck with your favorites, that's not a collection that everybody else
right.
is going to be interested in necessarily.
And then ironically, my favorite color is purple, but I guess I've done so much purple stuff now I didn't say purple, but anyway. But a lot of colors too come from when we travel or we go places, or geography. Designers a lot of times will come to us and say, I'm stitching something and I want it to be this faded color of yellow. This one's too bright. This one's too dark. And so a lot of times we'll do it because someone's requested it. Mm-hmm. And some of those are the best colors. Sometimes they'll see a hole in the palette that I don't see because I'm so close to it, I guess.
Okay. And Patty, where...
I wish I had such a good story. I have no idea. They just like zap into my brain, and I'll be in the shower or I'll be working on something, and it's just like there, and I have to go. I have Post-it notes all over because when it hits me, I just get a sketch down.
I'm exactly the same.
And I have like a giant pile on my desk, and I'll just pull out something and refine that drawing. And
is it still interesting?
Yes. Yeah.
That's kind of how I am too.
It just...
I'm the same way.
It turns into a series too, probably.
Yes.
Yes. Definitely. Yeah, you do a lot of things that sort of work in groups and series, definitely.
Yeah. And I always stitch on this linen, and I use their floss.
Well, and that's a good thing for me to say. I'm often inspired just by the product. If I find a fabric that I like, or this linen, first thing I thought was, I got to get back to making some garments, because that's beautiful, and the colors are just...
and they have lots of different counts. I really like their 20 count linen.
20,
and
so is there...
There's not, that's 30 right there.
These are always, okay.
When you're using a heavier, like pearl cotton, you can do a 20 count.
Awesome.
So I like those a lot.
Great. Let's see, can you use a fusible adhesive like Steam-A-Seam on the wool? Because we do a lot of application.
You absolutely can.
Okay.
We have examples right here.
Yeah,
I did use the fusible to put this down and then machine stitched around it, but I also did on these ornaments. This is, once again, my deadline time. I fused these and didn't sew them at all.
Sure, yeah.
And so they've gone to market and they haven't fallen apart. So I think they would stay.
And also, if you were doing something like one of the pillows, it wasn't necessary to do it here. But this could have been fused for someone who, maybe isn't as adept at it yet and want to just fuse it all down and then do their stitching on top.
It makes it flatter. Yes, you could.
It would make it flatter. But you could also window the fusible, and we've done that on episodes before, where you just cut out the center of the fusible. Then only the very outline of your design has fusible on it. So.
Right, and so the center would puff up a little.
And the people who are afraid of, fraying and it's not going to fray. I mean, I've seen this wool, and you can see how it's cut here, and you don't see frayed edges.
I actually did that on this one. I wove the black and white strips, and then I fused them on the back.
That.
Yeah,
that's very cool.
And so that's a way to use that fusible. And there was no windowing. I had to make the whole thing covered, but that works out.
It's great. It's beautiful. Oh, and then the last thing, I got a comment that I wanted to answer in the last episode that we did. I am new to Patrick Lose, but everything I've done with his designs are great, and I love hearing that. I'm using the Christmas snowflakes on my Believe Snowman quilt today. Looking forward to seeing new designs that I can use in my classes. And I mean, that's like the best thing a designer can hear, because I'm looking forward to, and I'm sure you guys are too, providing more designs. And I want you to always look to Quilting Celebrations with Patrick Lose when you're looking for ideas, and we'll see you next time.
Quilting Celebrations with Patrick Lose is brought to you by The Warm Company, manufacturers of the most loved battings and double-stick fusibles for creative people. Janome, what's next? Superior Threads, all your favorite threads. Havel's Sewing, cut it close with Havel's Sewing. And Patrick Lose Studios, designs and inspirations for your quilting celebrations.